Hello, welcome everyone. This is the International Peace Coalition. This is the 147th meeting that we had consecutively. And thank you all for being part of this process. My name is Anastasia Battle. I'll be your moderator today, as well as Dennis Speed, the co-moderator. And as always, I like to remind everyone why we created this forum 147 weeks ago, which was to unite the international peace movement, to bring people together of different philosophies, religions, cultures, languages, in order to accomplish the same goal, to coordinate our activities in order to create true peace on the world. So thank you all who have been veterans of this process and those who are new. If you're new, please introduce yourself during the discussion period. Let us know where you're from, any kind of activities that you are doing, and if you have any initiatives that you'd like to bring up for the discussion. There's definitely a lot that has been happening over this last week. I'll make sure to put in the chat a number of initiatives that have been happening. But to start us off today, we have Helga Zepp-LaRouche, who is the founder of the Schiller Institute and the initiator of the International Peace Coalition. Please go ahead, Helga.
Yes, hello to all of you. Well, the situation is still one of utmost suspense because while President Trump, who had first given a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran to basically capitulate, then on Monday, hours before that ultimatum ran out, it was prolonged until today, Friday. And in the meantime, that seems to have been prolonged again until April 6th. Now, the problem with that is that, after two times the negotiations involving Witkoff and Kushner were used as a pretext to just prepare an attack by the US and Israel, I am not sure anybody in the world is putting a lot of confidence that actually is meant serious, because trust has completely disappeared from international politics as a result. So we may have until April 6th, but it may be also much shorter. In any case, there are also many signs that an escalation is about to happen, because while President Trump was talking about, ultimatums, at the same time, the 82nd Airborne Division is on the way to the Middle East, probably bringing another 2,500 or about that number, basically new troops into the region, on top of about 4,500 who are already there. And then maybe other troops around in different US bases in the region, which estimated maybe up to 70,000 US troops in the region, and the possible idea of a ground landing. It is mooted Kark Island, but that is not so likely. It could be some other islands more to the east. But in any case, if such a ground invasion would occur, it would, on the one side, naturally mean a massive escalation. It would probably cause a lot of damage and casualties in Iran. But I think we would be well advised to assume a very harsh counter-reaction. And, experts like Scott Ritter basically say that such a ground force has a chance like a snowball in hell to succeed, even if they would try to maybe capture the uranium enrichment facilities or anything more inside the country. Because in the meantime, it is very clear that all the stated goals to decapitate the government, or as they always call it, the regime, has completely failed. The Iranian government is well entrenched in a position of control of the country. It is also clear that the interceptor missiles and other weapon systems by the US and Israel are running low. There are already clear signs that the Iranians may have the longer breath in this fight, and they are not out of ammunition whatsoever. In any case, the damage already occurred is enormous, especially on the world economy, because Iran used its geographical advantage and just blocked the Strait of Hormuz. And that has sent the oil prices, gas prices, energy prices worldwide skyrocketing. Many countries are seriously affected by it, especially those who are very dependent on the deliveries of about 1/5 of the oil energy supplies through the Strait of Hormuz. In any case, this has completely changed the situation, because now Iran, very far from announcing capitulation, has announced that the enemies of Iran better be prepared for a big surprise, not specifying what it would be. But they also, I think the Speaker of the Parliament also said that if there is cooperation from any of the countries in the region providing US bases for such an attack, that country would be faced with a complete obliteration of its entire infrastructure. Now, that is now a situation where, I mean, on the one side, the war is not going well for the US and Israel at all. The possibility of the war to escalate is unfortunately still very much there, because, if Israel is losing, there is a worry expressed by many experts all over the world that they could use nuclear weapons, in which case all bets would be off and we would be possibly in an escalation, which could, in the worst case, end with World War III and the extinction of the entire human species. But even below that worst option, there is the immediate danger of the war spreading. It could involve other countries, like Jordan, Turkey. Obviously, the Red Sea and the Dead Sea are not without reach. They could be closed for traffic as well. In other words, there are many aspects of an escalation letter which could really send the world economy in the short term into a depression, into a complete collapse, and with uncounted casualties if this war continues in any form. This is why we should not just observe the situation and analyze it, but we should, that's the purpose of the IPC, we should escalate the situation to try to put the alternative on the table. 2 weeks ago, we had the Iranian ambassador of Mexico, Ambassador Pasandide, who spoke at our event. And he has put forward a proposal in the meantime to EIR, to the Schiller Institute, to the IPC, coming out of this discussion of 2 weeks ago, where he had forwarded the idea of the dialogue of civilization at that time to counter the proposal by Samuel Huntington, who in the 90s had proposed a clash of civilization, which at that time was the effort by the oligarchy, by the international, empire faction. After the end of the Cold War, they were lacking an enemy image because communism had disappeared. And Samuel Huntington in the 90s had proposed this so-called clash of civilizations to basically build up an enemy image of Islam to replace the enemy image of communism, because whoever wants to play the game of geopolitics needs such an enemy image. Now, at the time when I read the book of Samuel Huntington, I said, this is just such an idiot, because he does not understand either Islam, nor Christianity, nor Hinduism, nor Confucianism, nor Buddhism. He was just a propaganda ideologue. pushing clash, but not understanding anything about these religions whatsoever. But when President Hatami advanced the idea of a dialogue of civilization instead, it actually found very big recognition. It even made it into the UN official proceedings, UNESCO, and so forth. So it is high time that we revive this idea and that we are we are talking to many people in the region and worldwide right now to put the alternative on the table in the next period. And we're trying to organize a big Zoom conference on April 6th to basically say, let's completely forget the present agenda and put another agenda on the table, which is the expanded Oslo Oasis Plan, sorry, not Oslo, the Oasis Plan, which was forwarded by Linda LaRouche in 1975, and which we updated and expanded in the recent period after the Gaza developments occurred, to basically put the Oasis Plan on the table, but this time not just for Israel and Palestine, but for the entire region from India to the Mediterranean, from the Caucasus to the Gulf. Because if you look at that region of Southwest Asia, it includes many countries like Afghanistan, which has been not rebuilt after 20 years of NATO occupation and many years of war before that. There is right now a gigantic humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, also because of the war with Pakistan. Iraq, which was one of the targets of the interventionist wars, is still devastated. Syria, devastated after many years of the Caesar sanctions and all kinds of other war operations. Likewise, Yemen, West Bank, Lebanon, Iraq, all of these countries are in a complete state of collapse. And that is why we need to have the idea of a joint economic development based on the concept of the Oasis Plan for the entire region. First, to have canals from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea and the Dead Sea, use peaceful nuclear energy for vast amounts of desalination of ocean water, to use that to green the desert, to build forests, farmland, orchards, and basically use that water to feed an infrastructure whereby we could build development corridors, like connecting the China-Pakistan corridor and the north-south transport corridor from St. Petersburg to Chabahar and possibly beyond into India, and connect it with other development corridors, connecting these countries with Turkey, with Africa, with Europe, because in ancient time, that region was the place of the ancient Silk Road, and at that time it was the hub for connecting the three continents through trade, exchange of science, of technology, of art, of ideas, of philosophy. And that is what that region can become again. China has demonstrated in Xinjiang and in the northeast of China that they have the technology and the know-how how to green the deserts. And there is no reason in the world why in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the entire Southwest Asia cannot look like a fully infrastructurally connected area where you have new cities, new science cities, new transport, where basically the desert has basically been reduced to tiny parks for people to visit, but not as the general living condition, because with modern technology, you can transform the desert into livable land. So we want to put that expanded Oasis Plan on the agenda as an alternative to the war. It would benefit all the countries of the region. It would obviously, many of the countries are now, really shattered, because also the Gulf states have realized that, their economic model is not viable, because if they have Iran as an enemy, then the US basis does not help them, but it makes them a target. They don't have well-developed citizens, because they have many guest workers from other countries who under these conditions naturally also have extremely difficult conditions. Many of them are trying to return to their home countries. So an overall development plan would be in the interest of everybody, and it could also hopefully convince the United States, that is the Trump administration, that it would be in their benefit that President Trump returns to become a president of peace, which he set out to become when he won his second term, because now he is confronted with a complete crumbling of support inside the United States. 59% of the US population disapproves of his present policy against Iran. 47% strongly disapprove, only 26% approve. So President Trump has to worry about surviving the midterm election. And also, for the first time in the Congress, there were several Republican congressmen, like Congresswoman Mace and Congressman Morris, who basically said that there is a complete discrepancy between what the public was told, what this war is all about, and what they are briefed now in terms of the briefings given to the Congress. And this is completely unacceptable. So the support for President Trump domestically is falling apart, far from the fact that internationally, naturally, the role of the entire West is in shambles. Nobody trusts the West anymore. Europe, likewise, or most of Europe, is totally discredited, because they did support this unprovoked war of aggression against Iran. It was only Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain who strongly attacked this war, saying it's much, much worse than the equally illegitimate war against Iraq in 2003. It will lead to devastating consequences, which will be paid, among others, by the European citizens, whose economy is being destroyed as a result as well. So Prime Minister Sanchez is a shining example of a European who has the courage to stand up against the war, but also others, are increasingly disapproving. Even President Steinmeier of Germany basically said this war is illegal. It's a violation of international law. Otherwise, I must say the Europeans are heavily involved, because both Great Britain and Germany allowed the United States to use their military bases in Great Britain and Germany for the attacks against Iran. So de facto, they are as much involved as the Gulf states, who permitted their bases to be used for the war. And they better, should remedy that, because otherwise they could be drawn into this war as well. So the situation is extremely far gone, but we are working really extremely high time, around the clock, to update this war alternative with this development plan. This will be the topic of our emergency Zoom conference on April 6th. So you should absolutely help us to get the widest possible audience for that conference. But before that, you should help us to organize as many governments, as many embassies, as many institutions, so that we increase the chorus of people who basically say the alternative to the war must be peace through development. I should mention, however, that the war in Lebanon goes fully on. 1 million people or more already have been displaced. The West Bank atrocities are continuing. The situation in Israel is not very known, because there's a total censorship about anything going on in Israel. But some news are coming out, and it seems that a lot of people are leaving Israel as well. And that all of this has an incredible impact. You can tell by the fact that in a recent poll, it turned out that 41% of all young people between 16 and 26 of Germany are contemplating to emigrate. 21% already have made concrete plans to do so. Now, that is a civilizational collapse. And, I think I can only say, it is not too late yet to go for the alternative of economic development in the interest of everybody. But the clock is moving forward and time is running out. So you should absolutely join our effort to put the alternative on the table, peace through development. Join our signing of the open letter to Pope Leo XIV, calling for a unity of religions to mobilize against the war, and join our efforts to put this oasis plan on the table in earnest, because it is the only concrete way out. There is a similar proposal coming from the foreign minister of Oman. China and Russia have also issued peace proposals. All of these must be put together to put a new security and development architecture on the table for the Middle East, but way beyond, for the whole world, because only if we change geopolitics into cooperation is there any. Please join our efforts. It is high time.
Thank you, Helga, for that opening and overview of what's happening in the world. I did include in the chat on the Zoom links for people to go and get the Pope letter, the press release, and the Oasis Plan resources. If you are watching over the live broadcast, you're on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, X, whatever you're watching from, and you'd like to find that information, you can go to schillerinstitute.com, and right on the top of the website, there'll be a number of links for you to click to get those items. And I also just want to encourage people who are watching over the various broadcasts or who are on over Zoom, please share this invitation with your friends and organizations. We should have as many people on today as possible. So thank you again, Helga. So we're going to have a slight agenda adjustment because my understanding is Ray McGovern was pulled into a very important demonstration coming off a press conference, which was done together with the Eisenhower Media Network and the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. So I'm sure we'll get an awesome report from him in the very near future. So good luck, Ray McGovern. I hope you're causing a lot of good trouble. But we do have stepping in, we do have um, Command Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force, former director of the Eisenhower Media Network, Dennis Fritz. He's the author of the book called Deadly Betrayal: The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. And thank you so much for joining us, Dennis Fritz. I was very impressed by the press conference yesterday and what you all put forward. Actually, let me just read off a number of people who were on that press conference, just so that way people get a sense of the impact that this had. It started off at 9 a.m. There was Ray McGovern, former CIA presidential briefing, Gunnery Sergeant Bryce Lockwood, Chief, USMC, on the USS Liberty, which this was very telling, having him on. You had Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, the whistleblower, uh, Josephine Gilbo, former captain of the U.S. Army Intelligence, yourself on this as well, and Brian McGinnis, who will also be joining us today, and Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Ingram. So you had a very jam-packed grouping of people at this press conference, and I really believe that this created a very good effect in DC. So please go ahead, Dennis Fritz, you have the floor.
Well, as I step in, and in the words of my good friend, if you can hear me okay, may I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. It's been some time now, and as all of you know, we've been extremely busy. But unfortunately, as I've been telling previous audiences, me personally, I feel like a failure because, as Anastasia mentioned, I'd written a book, Deadly Betrayal, The Truth Why We Invaded Iraq, and that was hopefully to try to prevent what's happening now in Iran, because, there have been folks telling me, hey, Dennis Fritz, you predicted this war. Well, no, I didn't predict it. I saw the playbook, if you will. For those historical buffs out there, I'm sure you remember our good friend, Daniel Ellsberg, Pentagon Papers about the Vietnam War. Well, I happen to have been, as I used to call myself, a poor man, Daniel Ellsberg. I put together the Pentagon Papers of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. I was part of a team that went in and helped declassify them, and I created a library of that war. And from that, when I saw the lying that was taking place and what was planned for the future with Syria and Iran, I wrote part of that in my book. And for those who have received it or seen it or will soon get it, you will see it was heavily redacted as well, to keep me from saying what I really wanted to say. So this war that we're in right now was always planned. If you allow me, I just want to get a couple things off my mind that's been out there with rhetoric with the administration and pundits that are out there promoting this war. So you may have heard this before, but I want to make sure it's just for all your audience, it's drummed in your head. We keep hearing the administration and pundits say this started in 1979. No, it started in 1953. We, the United States of America, along with Britain, we overthrew their democratic elected government. So we caused what's happening right now. That was our fault, not 1979. We in 1953. Secondly, what I would like to say, we, the United States of America, we caused this so-called hatred and distrust of us from the Iranians by supporting Saddam in the Iraq-Iranian war. And oh, by the way, Saddam introduced chemical weapons, which we knew, but yet we supported Iraq over Iran. So should they dislike us? Yes, they should dislike us. Oh, by the way, we have a tendency, the pundits will say out there, that the Iranians have blood, American blood on their hands. No, let's stop right there. We're in their part of the world. They're trying to protect their part of the world. We have more blood, the United States of America, on our hands than any country in the Middle East, than any so-called, as they portray Iran as the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. No, that is us and Israel. We have killed more women and children and innocent men than any so-called that we've named terrorist organization, whether it be Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. We have killed more people than they could ever imagine of doing. So I tend to say that we are the most state sponsor of terrorism, along with Israel. The next thing I will say, why do they dislike us? In the midst of two diplomacy engagements, diplomatic engagements, we attacked them. And more importantly, they were abiding by the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, better known as the JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal. We broke that. Why did we break that? Because of what's happening now. As you would hear, and thank you, Anastasia, for mentioning the book, you would see that we always had a plan to attack Iraq, then Syria, then Iran. Why did we save Iran for last? Because of what's happening right now. We were fearful of those ballistic missiles. Those ballistic missiles, well, they're first line of defense. They didn't need a nuclear weapon. And so that is why we tore up the so-called JCPOA, because of the fact we wanted them to get rid of their ballistic missiles or reduce them. And as I stated in the book, they were not going to do that because that is their first line of defense. And the big question I would ask your audience as I tell folks about using your own critical thinking, don't believe me. Don't believe other analysts that get on here. We're analyzing. We can give you assumptions, opinions, and facts. Well, I'm going to give you a fact. Does Israel have a right to defend themselves, that we hear pundits say? Well, I'm going to ask the question, does Iran have the right to defend themselves? And that's what they're doing, and they will never get rid of those ballistic missiles. We are the guilty ones of starting an illegal war. And oh, by the way, Iran told us that they will close the Strait of Hormuz. They told us that. Everything that is happening right now, they have discreetly done. And I am concerned and worried about where this war is going to take us. So I just wanted to get those things off my mind. And I know they wanted me to mention, yes, I was there along the Eisenhower Media Network we sponsored, along with a couple other groups. We were at the National Press Club. For those who are not familiar with that, that's a famous club down in Washington, D.C. And I think it was a great event, very successful event. And one of the individuals that was there, who I would like to mention, was Brian McGinnis. And some of you may have seen him. He's made it throughout the social networking world. He's a great Marine. Not only is he a great Marine, he's a firefighter too. So I will tell you, he's a very brave man. More importantly, because of the fact, back in the old days, and I want to pick on, Dennis Speed, the old guy, you know, uh, prerequisite of joining the military, one of the first stages before you can join Congress or try to become president. You had to be perceived as a so-called military hero. So you had to get that military background on your resume to run for office. Well, now that is changing. We need more military men and women running for office to keep us out of these dumb, stupid wars. And Brian has stepped up to the challenge. My fellow Carolinian, my home state of North Carolina, he's running for Senate. And I am so proud and happy for him. But when I talk about his bravery, because anybody that joins the Marines are very brave, as we see right now, unfortunately, Brian's comrades, his former comrades, are going to be introduced into a war possibly. They're going to get a lot of them killed, unfortunately. And that is why Brian has started speaking out. And let me just mention before I introduce him and then turn it over to anesthesia, when I talk about his bravery, this man went before Congress during a hearing and spoke out. And you know how they always tell us, so-called, we thank you for your service. Well, they thank Brian for his service for speaking out about these dumb wars by breaking his arm. Listen to what I just said, by breaking his arm. And I think we may have footage. I think anesthesia may have footage of that. But this is my introduction. I know she may have some few words, but I just want to get that off my chest of how proud I am of Brian for what he is doing and what he's going to do in the future. So, anesthesia, I think you have footage of when he had his little incident on Capitol Hill.
We do. Yeah, so we'll pull it up. This was at the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on March 4th. And I believe the person taking the video was our good friend Josephine Gilbo. Can we pull up that video, please?
A reminder to all our Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America.
Watch the reinforcement there. There's General Sheehy.
For Israel.
Hey, Sheehy, let his arm out of there, Sheehy.
Sir, thank you for your service.
The senator broke his hand. The senator broke his hand.
Thank you, Josie, for this.
Please help him.
Senator
Commandant!
the hand of a Marine.
He's a Marine. Somebody come help him.
Control your Senate committee.
Look at you guys. You're robots.
A U.S. senator.
You won't even look back. Look at you guys. You're like robots. Oh my God, what is happening?
Broke the hand of a Marine.
And you're not even looking back. Any of you four-star generals. Oh my God, what is happening right now? Eyes front, robots. Shame. Shame. Oh my God, you guys.
Everybody sit down,
What did
please.
I just see? I'm getting out of here.
That's fine. Everybody sit down, please.
Oh my God, what is
That's all.
happening?
Okay, good. No, it's not.
Oh my God.
It's disgusting.
Oh my God, you guys.
Sorry, does that hurt? Can you open it up a little bit just to change the gap? Hey guys, clear the hallways.
Out.
Clear the hallways. Clear the hallways, please. Clear the hallways, please.
Can you help him, please?
Yes, yes. Private places go in there. Please through the hallways.
Oh my God. What happened? His hand got totally smashed. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Why are you getting arrested?
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Yeah, put the cuffs on his broken arm. Why don't you put the cuffs on his broken arm? Thank you, Medea, for getting it.
His arm.
Ah, my arm is fucking broke, bro. My left arm is broke.
I understand. Don't fight.
Oh my God. Oh, you guys, come on.
I need you to move. You need to stop.
Okay.
Brian, stop.
He's fighting for you, not for him.
They broke his arm. Oh my God. It's totally broken.
Oh man.
Please, can you get him some kind of medical attention?
Yes, we are.
Oh my God.
You are? It's great.
Just let go of my arm before you sit down.
Y'all step back, please. Please move
Can
back.
you get
Keep
him
this
some
walkway
medical
open.
attention?
Who needs her?
No, he broke his arm.
Okay. Would y'all just move aside then? That way people can still exit.
Josie, what happened?
We just witnessed a Marine veteran interrupting the hearing, and they broke his arm.
Why did he interrupt the hearing?
Because there is a war in Iran, and our military brothers and sisters are going to.
Okay.
I just want to highlight one thing. In the original video, you can actually hear the snap of the arm as Brian is clearly stuck and the senator is pushing on him as well. And I just want to thank you again, Brian, for what you did, for speaking out. I was also very impressed that you didn't even let out a squeal as you were being ripped apart, like a true soldier.
Anastasia, can I say something before Brian start talking?
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, two things there, as I mentioned about his bravery and man, it withstand all that pain also. But what I want to mention, I'm sure Jose will be very proud. That's what I call a true intervention there. I mean, and Brian has the wounds to portray that. And the last thing I would like to say, an outstanding Marine. That was his thank you for your service, what they did to him.
Yeah.
My man, Brian.
I am very proud. Thank you, Dennis.
So without further ado, this is Brian McGinnis, retired Marine, Green Party candidate for Senate, North Carolina. Go ahead, Brian. You have the floor.
I am beyond honored to be introduced by Dennis Fritz, and the way you spoke for me. I appreciate that beyond, because your courage and your experience and speaking out as you are to speak the truth about these wars and the injustice, and your experience resounds so much stronger from your voice, Dennis Fritz. So thank you so much. And for you to speak of me in that light is such an honor. Thank you so much. And everybody else in this panel, thank you for what you're doing. And here's my arm. It's healing very well. And this war, which we are all discussing, is from us that are linked with this past 25 years of unjust wars in the Middle East, are just all too knowledgeable of the baselessness of them. And that's why we're speaking out. We are not anti-soldier, Marine, airman, or sailor. We are actually pro them because we're trying to speak for their safety and against the unnecessary, pushing them into an unnecessary war. And we're trying to pivot towards diplomacy, international law, and human rights. And we don't want you to be used for these profiteering wars that that are not serving our country as most brave men and women joined to do. Most people join the service to serve our country. This isn't serving our country and it's serving the 1%. It's serving the politicians. It's serving this Epstein class that we've all waken up to. This vile group of people who truly don't care about us, and they're showing that they don't care about us by just throwing us at this war in Iran, which is going to be
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I want to just point out, I put inside of the chat the link to both the press conference that you all put on together, as well as the link to the intervention that you made, Brian. And if people are watching over various platforms, you can go to Eisenhower Media Network, YouTube, and find the stream on there as well. I want to go to Helga to see if Helga Zepp-LaRouche, if you have a response to what's been discussed so far. You're muted, my friend.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just express my deep, heartfelt gratitude, because it is in times like this when the courage of a few may change history for the better of all of humanity. I can only say, keep doing what you are doing, because, the suffering inflicted by what I have to say, Anglo-American policy has been, with the support of many other people in Europe, has been unbelievable. As it was pointed out by both of you, it has been millions of people who have died as a result of what, for what? And I think that we are now at a point where the escalation of this has the danger of going into an unlimited nuclear war, which is threatening the extinction of the human species. And, if there's nothing else calling people back to reason than that possibility, then, let's confront that and basically say, this must be a point where we put an end to war. In the times of thermonuclear weapons, war cannot be a method of conflict resolution. We have to return to diplomacy. And I think, what you are doing is so absolutely important. And I can only tell you, the reputation of the collective West, which is not so collective anymore these days, is already down in the eyes of the global majority. And what you are doing is the hope that a return to normal relations among nations will be possible in the future. So thank you very much for what you are doing.
Brian or Dennis Fritz, I don't know if either of you have a response or reflection so far in the discussion.
We just say thank you so much for saying you're very welcome, and thank you for identifying where we're at and how important it is for us as Americans to speak over our government to the globe and say we do not support what our government is doing.
I'll just say, ditto. I could not add anything to what Brian has just mentioned. So I truly thank you, Helga, for all the hard work that you are doing. I mean, I'm just amazed at the energy of you, Dennis P., the other Dennis, and Anastasia. Just the work y'all will do. I'm just in shock and amazed. So thank you all for what y'all are doing.
I think we're causing. Go ahead, Helga.
The density of Dennis is a good thing.
I missed that. What did she say, Anastasia? It broke up a little bit.
You want to say it again, Helga?
The density of Dennis's. Can you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's quite a few of us.
Yeah, it's also a double entendre joke, but let's take it for the positive side.
Yeah. Hey, and I told Dennis, I know I'm just sitting in, but I'll be able to stay on if there are any questions or anything. I'm able to stay. I was able to rearrange my schedule. Okay.
Yeah, we also got a brief message from Ray, who said this. He said I just did a major protest with my old Catholic worker friends this morning at the Pentagon. I was successful in avoiding arrest, as I had promised. His wife's name is Rita, as I had promised Rita. So that's what Ray was doing, and therefore he has a note. He has a note from the Pentagon as to why he's absent here today. Okay, so I thought people should just know he sent that message in his regards.
Yes, that's wonderful. And I'm sure we'll be getting a report from Ray on all of the trouble that he caused at the Pentagon today. I'm actually very much looking forward to it. And thank you for sending that in, Ray. Well, Dennis, did you have anything else? I know you had said, was that what you wanted to say?
Just this, what you're seeing, what we are now seeing in the United States as a result of what these gentlemen did yesterday, particularly at the press conference, is very interesting, which is people from the military who are candidates for office, who are standing up and saying we in no way are associated or will allow our nation to remain associated with these criminal policies. And so if that's the way that we see a rebirth in the United States of the kind of thing we saw with the civil rights movement, or we've seen in other parts of American history, so be it. Makes a lot of sense in one sense, and I'm very happy and proud that they're doing it. Let me just also indicate that there are other people who are candidates. Tony Aguilar, for example, is running also for Congress down in North Carolina. And I believe that Bryce Lockwood, or the survivor from the USS Liberty, he's also a candidate. He's a state assembly candidate. I'm not sure whether that's North Carolina or not. So maybe we'll see some other candidacies soon. From other people from the military. And that may be the fastest way to send up an SOS from the United States to the rest of the world that we are here, we are fighting, and we are not going to allow this process to define American policy for much longer.
Gunnery Sergeant Lockwood is running in Missouri.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Definitely make sure to get him on the candidates list that we've been having various dialogues with. Wonderful. Well, that's excellent. I mean, one thing I do want to highlight, and then we can continue with our agenda. We have a couple other items, but one thing I want to highlight from that press conference that really struck me is the systematic exposure of what really happened with the bombing of the girls' school in Iran. I think that this is very, very damning. It was very clear what Anthony Aguilar and Josephine Gilbo went through, that it was known. It was absolutely known. And there were many, many, many times that human intervention could have been made, and from looking at the satellite images, which the school was changed from a military structure to a school 10 years ago. So it's hard to believe that the United States within 10 years would not have another image of this school and possibly question what it could have been. But they used 3 Tomahawk missiles, and the second one explicitly targeted the room where the girls were. And this was very much known, and Anthony Aguilar's assessment was this was most likely used to demoralize the Iranian government, because many of their children actually went to school there. So this is a very, very sick thing to do. And I think if any whistleblowers who were within that operation have knowledge, should definitely speak forward on this. This would definitely be very important in ensuring that we get the truth told on what's really going on. So I just wanted to underline that because many questions have been coming up around the girls' school. So again, oh, go ahead, Dennis.
I'll make a comment on that. What I will tell you is that it is definitely the MO of the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, to bomb schools and to bomb hospitals. So it is their MO. And I think that we, the United States of America, it's been confirmed that it was an American Tomahawk, but we tend to follow, unfortunately, the military practices of the IDF. Getting us into the Iraq War, it was based on a Likud party out of Israel, and their thing of, you've heard, more in the grass, more in the lawn, where they would go in and just bomb the Palestinians periodically. Well, that's what the Iraq War was based on. What we call, you heard this phrase before, anticipatory self-defense, meaning we're going to go in and attack before they allegedly do something against us. And if you heard back during the Iraq War, they were talking about, well, WMD, we could see, mushroom clouds over Washington, D.C. based on Saddam's regime, as they so call it, will provide WMD to terrorists. Well, likewise, they're saying that in Iran, they don't have a nuclear weapon. It was a lie. I saw the playbook, but we're using in ways the IDF playbook, bombing schools, if you will. And for us, not only international law, but for us, it is against the law, as Brian would tell you and other military folks. It is drummed in our head, the Geneva Convention, and basic military training for those of us that are enlisted and for those officers in the military academies, where you don't bomb schools, hospitals, or residential areas. And unfortunately, we have a Secretary of Defense who is violating all these principles and encouraging the troops to do it, which is sad. And because of the fact they're going to be held responsible. Another thing I want to mention in my background is you talk about, the things I've done in the past. Well, when I left the Pentagon, just so upset at what we were doing in this war, I went and I became a contract program manager for the military's Wounded Warrior program, not the Wounded Warrior project, but the official sanction. And I can tell you, those that may have been responsible for the killing of those women and children, some of those folks are going to live with that for the rest of their lives. So the majority of my clients were PTSD, where they had killed innocent women and children. And so in ways, some of y'all may not want to hear this, but our military, especially the young troops, they're forced to do this. And what do I mean by that? They're relying on their commanders. They're relying on, you heard Brian, I think someone mentioned in the background during that footage, where are you admirals? Where are you 4-star generals? They know better. These young men and women are following the orders because they don't know, even though they see social media, hey, why are we going to war? But there's carrying out those orders because also in basic military training, where we are forced and brainwashed to follow the orders of our commanders and our officers and our commander-in-chief. Well, they don't know. But then when they do this and they see they've killed innocent women and children, I can guarantee you there's many of them are going to live with that for the rest of their lives. And that is, I mean, it's just unbelievable that we fell into the arms of the IDF and following their rules of combat, if you will.
I think that's exactly the point that we should be making with people who are in there now, and they should speak out. They should become whistleblowers like Anthony Aguilar did, who showed incredible courage in getting this information to the public. There are definitely more people that I think can do this. So thank you, Dennis and Brian. We're going to continue with our agenda. But if you are able to stay on, please do. We will have more dialogue with the audience coming up shortly after a couple more items. And I'm sure I already see people with hands raised and, sending in messages and whatnot. So we'll definitely have more discussion. So next, I'd like to go. We have a video which has been sent in from co-editor of the Executive Intelligence Review magazine, Paul Gallagher. He is also an economist, a leading economist who worked with Lyndon LaRouche for I don't even know how many years. He was definitely one of the first collaborators of Lyndon LaRouche, so at least 45, maybe even 50 years ago. So I'd like to bring up that video, please.
Hello, I'm Paul Gallagher. I work with Executive Intelligence Review, and I'm going to report briefly on an investigation into somewhat bizarre reports that the United States, that the White House is requesting $200 to $250 billion in new Pentagon spending for the war in Iran, on which it has spent up to now only about $15 billion. The war industry employment grew in 2024 and 2025 by 5% in the U.S. economy in each of those years, while total non-farm employment in the economy in the same years grew by 1.7% each year. And manufacturing employment fell by approximately 1% in each of those years. Something more important than inflation and zooming oil prices and disruption of the oil markets and so forth, something more important than that is hitting the physical economy of the United States and of the European countries at least, and that is associated with the name of Hjalmar Schacht, the Reichsbank governor and economics minister of Hitler's governments from 1933 to 1939, when the strategy and schemes for compelled labor fronts, Kameradschaft camps, and so forth was laid. Schachtian economics drives all-out military production for war, thoroughly destroys civilian economies if it goes on for long enough, as the Nazi war economy destroyed itself. Now we're seeing a country, the United States, having just crossed the 100% debt to GDP line. It's never done that before but once, and that was near the end of World War II. Yet having done it again, a second time, without being in a war, the United States administration then started a war of choice, indeed an unprovoked attack on a developing country, Iran, which had significant means to defend itself. So this country has also had its president propose a war budget of $1.5 trillion for fiscal year 2027, next year. That's a 50% year-on-year increase in what was already a war budget greater than the next 12 largest war budgets in the world. You'd have to ask, why was this being done? the president had come into office with an economic strategy which made miraculous promises, but which very quickly failed. And now you're beginning to see something else. That's how I interpret what I've found in this investigation. If you look especially to the $1.5 trillion proposal, the target of that was not Iran, but industrial dominance over China. The White House was reported in mid-March to be making this huge request for more money for the Iran war, but no such request to Congress has been made, nor is such a request likely to have any chance of succeeding, with polls showing that a majority of Americans, not just a plurality, oppose now the president on the Iran war. But a different policy, or a related but much broader policy, has emerged on both sides of the Atlantic, and that is the policy of trying to increase economic productivity when it's failing by investing in war production. This is an oxymoron. Defense goods are economic waste, and they remain that even if contractors discover new technological principles in the course of fulfilling such contracts. They are not paid to apply those breakthroughs anywhere else, not in the civilian economy, but merely to keep producing the planes, the tanks, the ships that they're already producing. A few firms may do so on their own, but only if there are major government investments in new economic infrastructure going on. So if you look at the alarm raised February 23rd by the prestigious Industrial Performance Center of the Sloan School of Business Management at MIT on the subject of the, quote, U.S. productivity paradox in American manufacturing, the center finds that real technological productivity is falling throughout this century, whether the number of manufacturing workers from year to year is increasing, stagnating, or falling. And how would this Sloan School try to solve this? Number one, invest in artificial intelligence. Number two, use government defense contracts as a lever for productivity investments. So it's this solution. We have seen the European Union and major governments throughout the European Union use this same argument when forming slush funds for war, in effect, against the so-called preparation for war on the part of the Russian government. This motivation that this will return us to productivity increases by going to war production on a large scale. You've seen this on the European side as well. And it's that which apparently motivates this bizarre $200 to $250 billion defense request for the Iran war, which is not a request to Congress, not for that war alone, but part of a much larger aim for $1.5 trillion defense budget, including a huge slush fund to develop new kill technologies, what they call war unicorn firms, against China and Russia and the developing sector. The further one investigates this $250 billion slush fund, the more bizarre the story seems. 30 top investment bankers from JP Morgan Chase, Goldman, Bank of America, and Morgan Stanley, those banks are being recruited by an executive search firm called Heidrick and Struggles in order to help reorganize what's called the Office of Strategic Capital in the Pentagon, which has within it an economic warfare unit. And the person in charge of reorganizing this Office of Strategic Capital is the Deputy Defense Secretary, Stephen Feinberg, who just happens to have spent most of his career as the CEO of the very large hedge fund, Cerberus Capital Management. And he is in charge of the recruitment and the putting these top investment bankers to work with this very large slush fund of $200 billion plus. As the defense secretary said when he was asked about it, he said that could move, meaning it could move upward. Feinberg has two of his deputies from Cerberus Capital Management running the economic warfare unit, into which these bankers will be hired at absurd salaries on the order of $300,000 to $500,000 per year, far above the top salaries in the Pentagon, and offered at the same time, according to the Heydrich and Struggles slideshow on this, which I've seen, unbelievably, embarrassingly enrichment profits from the contracts that they make with these discoveries, these war unicorn firms that are making advanced strides in technology and so forth, in military technology, finding them, recruiting them. They'll make all sorts of profits themselves. They'll be connected and linked together with royal families, with famous banking families, with these sovereign wealth funds of various countries, in order to organize these investments. And what will they be? One stab at it in Semaphore, a new news service aligned pretty closely with the views of the administration. Quote, the U.S. military-industrial complex is quickly morphing into a military-industrial financial complex in which risk capital is flowing toward increasingly specialized defense bets. The Pentagon is hunting for investment bankers to strike more defense deals. Why would investment bankers be striking contracts which are normally done through procurement? Well, this slush fund is giving you an idea. Here's more from the New York Times taking a stab at it. The investment teams, the bankers, would focus on an array of industries and technologies, including undersea cables, minerals extraction and refining, strategic logistics, munitions, drones, satellites, and energy generation, as well as advanced steel and metalworking. So this sounds unlike fighters and bombers for and ships for the Iran war. Rather, it sounds like China, the target, the economic adversary above all others. And it sounds like Hjalmar Schacht, Hitler's economics minister and Reichsbank chief, using his fingertip control of the Reichsbank and his trade extortions from a number of countries during the 1930s in order to finance Germany's war mobilization from nearly a standing start to where 20% of the entire German economy by 35, 36 was in wartime production. Very interesting that the source of this huge slush fund, which these 30 top investment bankers are to deploy, is most likely the extortions in trade deals from the UK, the European Union, Japan, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and a few other countries who have made trade agreements with the United States, absurdly one-sided, extorted from them, essentially using the threat of unconstitutional tariffs, since found unconstitutional, extorted hundreds of billions of dollars in promised investments in the United States economy. Those investments are being targeted in this scheme for the finding and employing of so-called war unicorn companies with fundamentally new killing technologies, in order to carry out a war productivity, if you will, mobilization. That's what I've found in this investigation so far. as I said, it's an oxymoron. War production does not produce productivity in an economy. Infrastructure, modern, large-scale infrastructure investment by governments does. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Paul Gallagher, for this. And I believe this particular clip, we should make sure it gets into the hands of every congressman, congresswoman, and candidates so they actually understand the economic policy around this. This is definitely incredibly enlightening, this war unicorn companies that we're looking at with the military industrial financial complex. So thank you very much, Paul, for doing that, and we will make sure to get this investigation out broadly. Okay, so we're going to continue with our agenda. Next, I would like to go to Eduardo Gabriel Fernandez. He is a graduate of the Advanced Course in National Defense, member of the General Jorge Edgar Leal Observatory on Argentine Sovereignty. Thank you very much for joining us, Eduardo. You have the floor.
Sí, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes a todos. Bueno, distinguidas autoridades, invitados
Distinguished
especiales.
authorities, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. On March 24th, Argentina commemorated the 50th anniversary of the coup d'etat that shattered its constitutional order. It was the largest commemoration in recent decades. More than 1 million people filled Plaza de Mayo and the streets of the federal capital. Crowds mobilized in every corner of the country. It was a human tide that spoke with one voice, never again. Today, just 3 days after that popular outpouring, we raise our voices to say that mobilization was not merely a remembrance, it was also a warning. The civil-military alliance serving foreign interests, because that 1976 coup was not an exclusively military event. It was a civil-military alliance serving foreign interests. Declassified documents reveal that the then U.S. Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, was not only aware of the coup, he endorsed it. Argentine business chambers, grouped within the Permanent Assembly of Business Trade Association, organized an employer-led lockout in February 1976 to destabilize the constitutional government. Behind them operated the interests of the international finance capital, the Legislative Advisory Commission, a de facto Congress composed of military officers but advised by civilians, drafted the fundamental laws of the new order, laws such as the law on financial institutions, which concentrated the banking, laws such as the foreign investment, which opened the industry to foreign ownership, laws that today, 50 years later, remain in force, destroying our country, an economy of terror, a model that returns. This project had a name, José Alfredo Martínez de Hoz, the dictatorship's Minister of Economy. His plan was strategic: to open up the economy, to destroy domestic industry, to consolidate the banking sector, to favor financial speculation, and to nationalize private debt, to transferring the losses of large economic groups to the state. Companies such as Ford, Techint, and the Macri Group, amongst others, actively collaborated with the repression. They handed over lists of workers and lent their facilities as clandestine detention centers. The result was the destruction of thousands of factories and the consolidation of an oligarchy that has rotated through democratic governments with a single objective: objective to prevent that virtuous cycle, the domestic market, high wages, rising social mobilization in an alliance between capital and labor from being rebuilt. The current government and the continuation of the plan. Since taking office, the Argentine government has implemented an economic program that echoes the plan repudiated on March 24th. On March 25th, at the United Nations General Assembly, Argentina voted against a historic resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade a crime against humanity, alongside the United States and Israel, in a throwback to Plan Condor. The same law firms that drafted the dictatorship law now place officials in strategic positions. The same Techint group, which has its debt nationalized in 1982, now manages YPF, the company. The same agrarian oligarchy that supported the coup now shapes agricultural policy. The Argentine people took to the streets on March 24th to say, we do not want that model to return. Our letter to the Argentine bishops and archbishops. As part of this commemoration, the Observatory for Argentine Sovereignty sent a formal letter to all the bishops and archbishops of our country, joining the call that Mrs. Helga Zepp-LaRouche from the Schiller Institute addressed to His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. In our letter, we state that peace demands action. It demands that religious authorities raise a unified voice to halt the military escalation that threatens a global nuclear war. Just as bells of all churches can ring in unison to stop the madness of war, the shepherds of our people have a responsibility to call for sanity. We have received responses from various dioceses, and the dialogue remains open. From the Southern Cone, from the Patria Grande, we call upon the peoples of the world to unite in defense of peace, sovereignty, and life. We fully endorse Helga Zepp-LaRouche's appeal, and we have conveyed this endorsement to the pastors of our church so that together we may speak with one voice, yesterday, today, and always, never again. May the memory of the victims guide us. May the truth unite us. May the construction of an economy at the service of the peoples be our horizon. For world peace, for an end to imperialist interference, for the memory of all the victims. Let the escalation of war cease. Let diplomacy prevail. Long life the will of the peoples. No to war in the Persian Gulf and anywhere on the planet. No to the economic model that impoverishes the people. Yes to life, sovereignty, and peace. Thank you very much. What I want to contribute is that many of the bishops have welcomed this letter, and they agree with the proposal from Helga in our Argentinian Republic. We have sent 150 letters to each of the bishops in a personal level, and many said that each of their dioceses were going to work on the topic, and one of the bishops in particular is part of the Argentinian Episcopal Conference, and I believe he said it's very important the call Helga made and the work that we are doing through the Observatorio. So that's the work we have been doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo, for the work that you're doing. This is excellent. This is excellent, and is a great expression of what everyone can be doing around the world. And we greatly appreciate your report, especially on what has been happening within Argentina. and the mobilization. I did show the image that was sent in as well of the very large protest earlier while you were speaking as well, so people got to look at that. So thank you again for that. All right, we will continue. We have one more item for the discussion. We actually have a report coming in from Tim Rush, who is with the Schiller Institute. He's also with Executive Intelligence Review. He was at the press conference yesterday with Eisenhower Media Network and Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. But I know you also went into Washington, D.C. to talk to our congressmen and women, which sounds very fun, actually. And so we'd love to hear from you, Tim. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Anastasia. What I'd like to do is just run a short video that we have prepared that we filmed when we were on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. So if David, if you'd be able to bring that up. Today, yes, this is Tim Rush with a very extensive LaRouche movement delegation on Capitol Hill today, the 24th of March. We brought a very powerful message, and Harrison will be filling people in on that, but we're going to each introduce ourselves. It's a delegation of about 12 people. My name again is Tim Rush from Leesburg, Virginia.
I'm Joe Billington from Leesburg, Virginia.
I'm Brandon Brophy from Long Island, New York.
My name is Nomar Rodriguez. I'm from the Bronx, New York.
Mike Campbell from Massachusetts.
Amanda Croson from Reston, Virginia.
I am Harrison Elfrink from New Jersey.
Bruce Todd from Ocean County, New Jersey.
Kunle Ojofetimi from Maryland.
Jerry Belsky, Baltimore.
Neil Martin from D.C.
Yeah, so we are here in Washington, D.C. to present to our representatives a packet. We're very concerned about the developments in Southwest Asia, in Iran in particular, and the Persian Gulf, but we've decided to come out and do something about it. So we want to expose the whole Epstein class, which have been, the people that they're not only child molesters, but they're also people who have undue influence over our foreign policy, our economic policy, and social and cultural policy. So we want full exposure of this Epstein class. But in doing so, we want to propose an alternative to what is called not just the Epstein class, but the Epstein culture. And in this pamphlet is something very useful from our chairwoman, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, titled, "Let's Fight for the Beauty of the Human Soul." And in thinking about that, as I visited the offices of different congressmen and congresswomen, I thought about how do you really approach the soul of someone, particularly those in power? Well, a thing I have done, and I've experimented with, is I would look around a congressional office. In one office, I saw a model rocket ship. Another office, I saw a rock of coal. And and you get a sense of their state's industry, their economic activity, and why we shouldn't squander the future of the constituency of these different states and these different congressional districts on something that could expand into World War III and kill all of humanity. Instead, this also helps dovetail into a solution concept that we've had going back decades, that Lyndon LaRouche had going back decades to the mid-70s, called the OASIS Plan, which is a durable peace through economic and infrastructure development in Southwest Asia, not just between Israel and Palestine or Israel and the Arabs, but the entire Southwest Asian and North African region, And we could also have an expanded one that deals with the interests of both Iran and Israel. This is what we're working towards, and this is how we're going to secure the peace. And we are calling for the American public to do the same, really work for this peace. Thank you very much. My name is Harrison. I look forward to meeting with you one day.
Well, that gives some. I really appreciate how Harrison approached that, because when you go in to talk to people in the offices in Congress, you rarely come across the Congress people themselves. That's something that is more easily done out in the districts when the Congress people have town hall meetings, or they show up for some ribbon cutting ceremony or something else. We call upon the population to be very alert to be able to reach the Congress people themselves. But when you go into offices on Capitol Hill, this literature comes in where there's such a intensity of crisis, and an utterly non-functional, that's actually a kind way to put it, Congress, very corrupt. When you talk about an Epstein class, you're talking about an apparatus that has goods on almost every member of Congress. You can't go in there with some idea that you can play some small feature of the situation and somehow throw a hook out that's going to grab them. You need to be able to do exactly what Harrison outlined. You have to touch the humanity of people. You don't know where that's going to go, but you know that no other approach is going to work. And I can give one example that I think is particularly useful. In a Northern Virginia congressional office, we met with one of the senior staffers, and not familiar with us. And we went through, and this was true in most offices, the issue of the OASIS plan presented to them caught their attention because it is not anything that's on their radar screen. There's a lot of what you want to call it, for or against kinds of divisions, etc. But the idea that you can actually have a higher principle of a solution grabs their attention. So the woman definitely absorbed a good deal on that very quickly. But then I shifted and we discussed the fact that in her district, there's a large Iranian American community. And we had the privilege in the Schiller Institute of the collaboration of a supreme musician performing the classical Persian music that goes back millennia. He was just a supreme musician, and he volunteered his art to a conference of the Schiller Institute last May in Newark, New Jersey, as part of a dialogue of civilizations, a whole panel on that principle. And he recounted something very moving. He said that in 1979, the Khomeini revolution in Iran, the Iranian community in the Washington, D.C. area was fractured very deeply, and the community basically was disintegrating. And he founded regular weekly assemblies of our Iranian Americans to play classical Persian music, to recite classical Persian poetry, which is magnificent. And this knit together the capacity of the community to maintain itself and not disintegrate. Those meetings have continued without interruption. It makes even our International Peace Coalition meetings look tame with our 147th meeting. They've done it continuously since 1979. He unfortunately passed on this last September, but this lesson of the dialogue of civilizations combined with the OASIS plan made a tremendous impact on this particular staffer. How far this goes, how it works out, you don't know. But you do know that if you don't approach things with that quality of idea of what humanity is and the expressions of humanity, you aren't going to move anything. So the only thing I wanted to add is that a statement of Diane Sayre that has been endorsed by a number of other independent candidates, and several of them are on with us today. I salute Brian on this. and Tony Aguilar, who's been on in previous. It's stated independent candidate statement: is the Epstein class planning a new 9/11 to justify dropping a nuclear bomb? And so the existence, we brought to Congress, we reached 390 offices of the 435 in the U.S. House. We had hoped to get over to the Senate, but 390 is not shabby. And that statement already had an effect in terms of alerting offices to this potential, as well as all this in-depth material that we were bringing. One last final note: in yesterday's event at the National Press Club, I do want to salute Dennis, Fritz, Brian, and all the others there, Ray McGovern, simply because the intensity, the passion that these military professionals who would, have dedicated themselves to the idea that they are defending this country, and as Tony Aguilar stressed, he said, you take an oath of office when you go into the U.S. military. It goes all the way back to George Washington. And it's an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States. It's not an oath of office to a president, nor to a branch of government, nor to a political party. It's to the Constitution of the United States. He recited by memory the preamble of the Constitution, and he broke down and he said, this is what we have to endow everyone with the potential to be the person that grows and flourishes in the image of the stated preamble. Josie Gilbo got up at the very end and simply said, I have young children. I should be spending more time with them, but I don't want to have a country which has normalized the killing of children for them to grow up in. So there's a quality of passion here that is taking shape as a key element of the citizens movement. Jose Vega was there, others. I just want to really stress here that this is a quality of individual who has put themselves forward, put themselves in danger, fought, but they see a war crime, they know a war crime when they see it, and they are absolutely transfixed by the intensity of their repudiation of what happened in Minab. They were asked at one point, well, why there's no one in Congress who's calling for an investigation? And I think it was Josie simply said, well, when we normalize the genocide that's been going on for these many years in Gaza, people were desensitized and did not react. We have to stop that. We have to bring this forward in a way that shifts the way people have to regain their humanity. So I just want to stress how important it was, this event yesterday, and it intersects and enriches the whole candidates movement that's taking shape.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that and for sharing this video. It was really wonderful to see all these faces in Washington, D.C., going to congressional offices. We definitely need more of that. Just making a call out to other members of the International Peace Coalition. If you are in the United States and you would like to go meet with your congressman, reach out, let us know. This would definitely be wonderful to have you go in there with us. It was at least, a delegation of 10 or 15 people I saw from the faces there. So what I'd like to do now, we're going to continue with the next portion of our meeting today. I'm going to make the transition towards the audience. So let me make this announcement for the transition. If you were watching over the live broadcast, whether this is over YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, I know Garland Nixon has posted this sometimes on his channel, and you would like to participate during the discussion period, you must be registered and get the Zoom link. You can do that by going to schillerinstitute.com, and right on the top of the web page, there is a link where you can go to the IPC registration page and sign up for that there, and you'll be emailed the Zoom link. So with that, Dave, just let me know when we have made the transition.